you told me, look, all these pages here, you might as well delete them and stop wasting Google's time trying to index them. And I'm like, wait, what? There's like 2,000 pages there. And you've just redone that report for me, and we're redoing that exercise. And I think I'm up to over 1,000 pages that are going to be completely decimated. One of my business partners is Gert, Mellak, and he has helped hundreds of e-commerce brands focus on SEO work that actually moves the needle. And today we're going to be talking about his systematic approach to finding revenue leaks most agencies miss. So, Gert, it's lovely to have you back.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, look, you're running this business, SEOLeverage.com. We've been working together for so many years now. If I think back to how we started, it was when you were in my, at the time, the lower tier community, helping out all the members. Just you had so much, like a fountain of knowledge. And I started suggesting to people to try you, and you just smashed it out of the park for them. I think at the time, the kind of projects you were particularly good at were rescuing people who got slammed by algorithmic updates. That was the game back then. You were very good at it. You've always had a flair for interesting projects, and it looks like you're doing the same again. You know, I often talk about the 64-4, focusing on the vital few, ignoring the trivial many, like from Wilfredo Pareto, but sort of applied to itself. I've done this with my own business. We've been talking about that in some previous podcasts where I've changed my business model slightly and tuned it. And you've been changing how you deliver SEO. I imagine it is a very interesting time for you in this particular market. We've had a couple of episodes talking about AI. Today is not an episode about AI and SEO, but I am interested in the shift in how your SEO operation is moving to adapt to what you're seeing in the marketplace.
I think when we look back at the last years of working with you, I think one thing that definitely sticks out for me was like the complete shift from adding services like crazy to have more on the website to actually shrinking down, focusing more and more, reducing services, reducing things where we did not see an impact for our clients, and just really getting specialized on a handful of things where we know this works. We have perfected the method of delivery in those cases. And now today we're going to talk about like the last of those shifts we have been making. Ultimately, it's just consistent innovation, but innovation always comes for us with stopping to do things or doing things drastically different, because we have just figured out, based on our client feedback, based on what we see, what the results they get, how we can actually do things better.
Well, I mean, one of the huge things that you delivered to me, and I call this, by the way, when I'm coaching people, I call this breaking their nose. It's when you have to deliver a hard truth. And that was this massive crawl of my website. And you told me, look, all these pages here get no impressions at all. So you might as well delete them and stop wasting Google's time trying to index them. And I'm like, wait, what? There's like 2,000 pages there. And you've just redone that report for me, and we're redoing that exercise. And I think I'm up to over 1,000 pages that are going to be completely decimated because they're not serving any particular purpose. So I imagine, as I went through it the first time, it was this feeling of sunk cost. I imagine that that's something you would encounter when you bring to people a different way of doing this. And just by way of validation, by the way, I did see a really well-known SEO guru's post just floated past me on socials the other day, and he said they're running these big reports. I think he said they were using a tool like Screaming Frog or something. He said it's worth the money. They were running these huge reports and looking for all these particular filters, and one of them was anything that doesn't get any visits or impressions or making any impact whatsoever, just delete it. And I'm like, wow, it's refreshing to see that this is validated by other pros. It's a hard thing to do. And when I think about how much effort and time went into creating that stuff, the big lesson for me is you've got to make good stuff that is useful and going to get the goal. And I'm sort of the words of my mentor echo in my mind, which is, what's the point? what is the point of any piece of content I put on my website? And it would be to serve a purpose, to do the thing that most wanted action. In my case, these days, having people join Mentor or visiting my partners, that's the most wanted action. If it doesn't do that, it shouldn't be there. And if I have any part of the process that doesn't serve that, it should stop before I even publish it. And then you tell me to delete it next year, right? So I think you're doing something pretty similar with your stuff. Instead of doing this overarching traditional SEO audit, you're saying, listen, here's what's costing you money and wasting time or is broken. Time for change, time to do something different. And I imagine that would be interesting when you deliver that.
It is, and it's fascinating if you think about how people value what's on their website. For example, very often it's valued by the hours it took them and their team to create it. And as I said, this was a huge article. We interviewed 10 different people. It took us a week to put it out, a week to edit, etc. And this has value, but ultimately the value is revenue. At the very latest, when they see that this didn't bring sales, the only value we are talking about is revenue. So with an audit, and I think in the last years we have been obviously a little bit more focused maybe, but we have had like a very traditional SEO approach. What is this? It is that first of all, you do an audit, you look into the website and the competitors, do a completely 360-degree analysis. You line up what you get to know every single piece of content they have on the website, and sometimes it can be in the thousands. And it just takes a long time. And I remember the first audit I did was like 30 pages, the last 120, because we just found more and more things we could analyze, which was great. And then you deliver the report, and clients said, yeah, now let's please get some help and help me work on this. And then we would obviously always prioritize, but there were always a lot of things that ultimately weren't worth the time, or the return wasn't covering the time it took to work on them. So what's the point, again, like you say, what's the point of having somebody go through 8,000 pages and optimize a meta description or whatever it was back then if the potential return isn't there? So what we did then, and there was actually one other problem, because once you then work on those things monthly, and every agency usually has like a monthly retainer, you automatically require a few of the client's hours every week. So even if you do like done for you programs, like we still do them, because some clients, it's just their preference, but it's not what we think gives the most value. The most value comes from focused action, because always also the time it takes the team to work with us is then limited. It's not every month, every week your agency bothering you because they need an approval, they need an edit, they need input, they need I don't know what. But you just know, hey, in the next 30 days, SEO is going to be a focus. So we already know they are going to need us twice on a meeting, and they're going to need 4 approvals, and we can schedule that for that. And then we're going to do our thing again.
It makes so much sense. And it's a direct parallel to the way that I'm operating as well. I came up with that 64 for Schramko framework, and it's my way of analyzing a business and identifying of all the things you could do. This is the one power move, the high impact move that makes everything else not required, or if you just did this. And I make it so minimum that we literally have one action for the week. If they just do this one thing, I don't care about all the other stuff. We can get to them later. But do this one thing. And you're actually echoing that, especially when it comes to a team. And I can relate to this because as you've been working with my team and me, the less stuff you send over for us to do, the better. If you send us one spreadsheet and you say, go through the spreadsheet, look for anything that has 0 impressions and delete it, do that this week, that's actually going to get done. Instead of here's 300 things we found. I mean, that it's just like you choke up on that. And I think we had a conversation a while back where you used to have to get on calls with clients and sort of dredge through reports and go through all the stuff. And now you send a very short video that says, here's the report. This is what you need to do. Let's get this done. And then we'll move on to the next thing. And that's joyous and low friction and gets the result. Now, imagine in your case, you've got use cases where you find that one thing and it has a significant revenue value attached to it. If they just did that, have you got any examples?
We definitely have quite a few examples. So I remember there was a coach, for example, we just changed something on his homepage and it just brought his ranking up. So he was stuck on page 2 per 3, and we just analyzed this, discovered what the issue was, and it was literally a textual change on his homepage. He had like a very flowery way to describe what he was doing, and we just simplified it. I have a technical background, so I think I have a little bit of a tendency to be rather direct, but it actually worked. So suddenly his page popped up, and this was like a very quick change. One of those changes you probably take 20 years of experience to find what it is, and then it takes 5 minutes to fix. But this was definitely one of those. And
Is
another
that my
one,
page?
it wasn't your page.
He did something similar to me. We changed one word that we were targeted on, and we pointed some internal pages to it, and it popped up.
Sometimes, a lot of times it's internal linking, for example, in your case.
It went I think it went position 1 or 2, but it also started showing up in AI results as well. Yeah. So it was a double banger result from that subtle suggestion. We don't see it, and that's because we're doing other things. I'm recording a podcast or coaching my mentees. That's my role, and so SEO is not the first thing on my radar. But it's good to have someone looking at it with fresh eyes and their own system to say, hey, this thing here, if you change that term or you link to this from a few other things or update this page with updated content, Google would really love that and they want to reward you for it. That's like, thank you. That's amazing.
Exactly. And what we really try to do more and more is also to put this into a revenue context, right? We obviously can't guarantee that you are going to...
That's your filter, revenue.
Exactly. The filter is ultimately revenue, because I know that the conversation I'm going to have with a client 4 months into a retainer is going to be, where's the money? Which is normal, right? They're investing in something that should have a return. They are patient, but they want to see they're heading in the right direction. And this means revenue for them. For me, it's rankings. And I see rankings go up. For the client, obviously, it's revenue. So this is why we just shifted things.
It used to be rankings for some clients. That vanity metric was, I need to rank first for this particular word. Mm-hmm. Does that still happen, or are people more than happy to say, gosh, I really like this whole idea of it being attached to revenue? That would actually be news to some people, I imagine.
I think there are a few we have a little bit of both. We have those ego-driven rankings, so they come in and say, I need to rank there because I was the first in my industry and this is mine. This number 1 ranking should be mine. We don't get along with those people very well.
But that would still have some correlation to revenue, wouldn't it? Because they would be saying, listen, I need to show authority. It results in conversions when people see that we're the top cheese. Although, as I say that, I'm just thinking about how convoluted the first page of Google is now that apparently they've restricted most of their data sets to one page instead of 100 results, which might have made things interesting for the SEO industry. But also, it's very hard to weed through what's an ad, what's organic, what's an AI summary overview, like what's a rich text snippet. It seems to be messy there.
It is messy, and we have had actually clients that came with their ego base, I would say, and we got them to number 1 and they still canceled because they didn't get the revenue they expected.
Right. So it's basically just a matter of time. I can relate. I'm running ads for something, and I've just asked my team, can we go through these leads that come from the ads? Can we pin the tail on the donkey? Can we actually correlate that these are causing sales? And how do they behave with our email broadcasts? Do they open emails after that first one? Are they good people to have on the list? Is it worth continuing or not? And I have a hypothesis, but I want the data. But if it's not producing revenue that at least matches the spend, of course it's going to stop. That's one of the filters, isn't it? So you're heading it off at the pass. You're making an ROI investment, which for a business is a great thing. I guess I do something very similar. I would hope, and I do see this regularly, that people have big outcomes. I have a client called Darren, and last month he made $300,000, which was a wild month for him. But even a year or two ago when we started working together, I was absolutely certain that was going to happen at some point. And to be able to put that together and to see it materialize, what would the ROI on mentoring be after a $300,000 month, it makes my fee look quite insignificant. Like it's not something that's going to be queried at the next financial review. It's like, no, that can stay. So you're positioning yourself well. You're saying, okay, we're going to calculate exactly how much revenue this change would impact your business.
Exactly. We try to attach a value not based on the effort it takes, but rather on the outcome you're getting or the return you're getting when this actually has happened. And then we work our way backwards and say, hey, what needs to happen in order to get there? And then we just are laser focused. It's very similar. I've been in a group fitness training for a few months now. They didn't analyze my blood work. They didn't send me to a DEXA scan. They just made a quick evaluation and said, these few things are definitely good for you. And I get the results. I get the results I came for. Obviously, I can go deeper. If I have more time, I can go deeper. But a lot of things based on a quick assessment plus experience, they just know this is going to work. And this is very similar to what happens to us. So I get a site, and we have developed a tool we might be talking about as well that helps us assess what the revenue impact is of certain things that we know are usually potentially an issue. And then plug in their numbers and say, look, the revenue leak you have is probably $15,000 per month because there is something wrong here. And now suddenly we are not talking about things that could be quote unquote good for SEO. And we think we're doing this. We're talking about a potential issue. We attach a value to it. And now that our clients can assess how many resources am I willing to dedicate to fixing this in order to potentially recover those 15,000 every month.
That's an important distinction there, because I imagine a lot of your clients are dedicating resources to many things, from a team, content, paid traffic channels, other things that, trade shows, travel, all that sort of stuff. So you're competing with a marketing budget. It will be easier for the decision maker to say, okay, well, you said it's not a retainer. Is this a project-based thing now?
Yes, it's a project-based.
So you say, this is the project amount, and this is what we think you're missing out on. So the benefit will be that you'll pay this amount, we'll fix this, and then you'll get this new revenue level. And I imagine some of that could be compounded. Like if you're positioning better for a particular term that creates revenue, that might be an ongoing revenue pump, not just a one-time thing.
Exactly. Usually it's also not only going to be a particular term we push, but there's a lot of additional traffic coming through this push with related terms. Every page can rank for hundreds, sometimes thousands of keywords. So you push a page, it's going to go up for a lot of things. And I just talked to this electronics B2B e-commerce, for example, last Thursday. And we just ran this through what we have created, a calculator. Right? We have created a calculator where you can plug in your values, your number of visits, your average order value, AOV, your conversion rate, etc. And it's just going to help you tick a few boxes, whether you have this in place, you don't have this in place, and just can very quickly assess based on my values, based on my situation, based on my conversion rate, this is what I'm actually losing by sitting there on page 2 or page 3 of Google versus my competitors that are suddenly for one term that's ranking higher, getting more revenue. But it's not only rankings, it's also the technical optimization. Sometimes you're not getting the same click-through rate just because your technical SEO isn't in order. So there are various facts we try to analyze there and then prioritize what makes sense to work through as a project.
Who operates that? Is that a tool you have, a proprietary tool, or is the consumer entering their values?
It's a public tool. I created this. It's on SEOLeverage.com/calculator. Everybody can go to our website. There's a green button you can click. You can type in your values. You don't have to sign up or register or pay or anything. It's a free tool that's available. And then if you think that makes sense to have a conversation because the impact is considerable, there's a link to book a call with me and just quickly analyze this and we assess, does this make sense or does it not?
Would you say the values are representative?
I would think so. So we tie all the benchmark values, we tie them to recent studies, we tie them to particular outcomes. Click-through rates have shifted a lot, whether there is or there is not an AI overview present on Google these days. So obviously you need to take it with a grain of salt, but the values are well researched. So we definitely have our work done here in order to make sure we know what kind of percentage can we assume the conversion rate is going to go up with an optimized product page, for example.
Nice. Yeah, it reminds me, I made a few calculators like the effective hourly rate calculator. And for some people, when they plug in the values, they're like, oh my God, I should probably just get a job at McDonald's. But it's the values on the calculator can really make it real and understandable. Like in my case, with an effective hourly rate calculator, if you could reduce your hours that you work, your hourly rate goes up. So that's one thing you can do. So imagine there's two components to this. One is entering the values, and then two is knowing what to do to change that result. And I guess that's where your experience and your project comes into it.
Exactly. We then assess really what kind of sprints make sense. Sprints is like a project, and we try to focus them on 30 days, because 30 days is like on the horizon of everybody. Everybody knows maybe not this month, but in next month I have 30 days to focus part of my time on SEO. So we can schedule this in. We can make sure this is prepared. And we just also make sure that the assumptions are realistic. So you can't always aim for a number one spot, because maybe there's Amazon or there's Wikipedia, because Google believes it should be Wikipedia. But maybe the number 3 spot is realistic. And then you can say, okay, number 3 is probably getting me X amount of clicks. And with my conversion rate and AOV, this is the revenue I'm actually risking right now or leaking right now, which I definitely want to fix.
So do you still have retainers for some clients, or are you moving to a sprint model?
We try to move to the sprint model because I think I'm convinced this is the best model for most clients. We still have, for some larger projects, especially the ones starting out, still like audit and strategy and content strategy, etc., just because it makes more sense. This is just starting a new project right now with 150 articles. I think we need to analyze everything here. But I think for the average e-commerce store that's already making sales, that is on Shopify basis or WooCommerce, I mean, the platforms have come a long way in the last years. And I remember programming my own platform 20 years ago because there was nothing on the market that would make sense. And now we've got platforms like Shopify where a lot of things are already in place, but also on many Shopify sites, we see the same issues. So I see a Shopify site, I can already detect certain revenue leaks it has just because it's built on this platform. And we can directly match this with our experience and past projects and past successes we had and say, hey, these 3 sprints might make sense for this project.
I like that. You've got all the data to back test it. And holy shit, when you say 20 years ago, like that is literally when I registered my first domain. This domain, actually, jamesschramko.com, I think was registered in 2005. And that was 10 years after I first went on the internet in 1995, which was 30 years ago. Like, wow. I mean, I've helped people who weren't even born 30 years ago. So that is pretty wild, isn't it? And what a time to be doing this online thing. Of course, after the pandemic, working from home's no big news or nothing revolutionary, but it certainly was before that. With the sprints, I mean, I like the idea that you can say, based on your inputs, this is what you're missing. This is what the sprint will cost. We believe that you will be able to benefit more than what the sprint costs. How much does a sprint cost?
Usually our sprints start at $7,500. We then have package sprints. So we come across websites where we say after the first sprint, just as a heads up, there might be 2 more you will need. Don't have to be connected. We can do them a little bit later. But if we spot the issues, we're definitely going to tell them, like we would in an audit as well. But this is usually where we bring the entire team together and say, let's push through this as fast as we can. And then also what clients really appreciate is that we, at the beginning, tell them, look, these are the resources we are going to need from you. We're going to have a call in the first week and then last week. We're going to need a person that approves 3 pieces of content and a person that gives us input for the homepage paragraph and revises it. And that's it. So they know exactly in the next 30 days, there's not going to be somebody constantly nagging them in order to move something forward. They have this already scheduled, it's just another meeting. right? And then they know after 30 days they're going to continue focusing on whatever they focus on. But really, with ongoing projects, we just always have this issue that it's like SEO is always a topic, and nobody likes SEO on the client side. We like SEO on the client side. Nobody likes SEO. It's just something you need to do in order to make money.
It's been around
and make more
forever.
money.
It's boring. It's changing. Like, it's so easy to dismiss until you look at one of your revenue calculators and you can see what value can come from owning a phrase and sitting on top there and getting that traffic. And it might not be easy to put in black and white, but that conversion factor of having a top ranking is still must be significant when people start looking for the trust factors. Is this person established, or is this product legit? I imagine in your case, the use case would be significantly skewed towards e-commerce.
It's definitely a little bit focused on e-commerce, but we use the same calculator for online courses or even reputation projects. So we had a reputation sprint, for example. I had a local campaign for a one-man company in Canada where we did like a local SEO sprint. And it works the same way because ultimately there are very similar issues happening on all kinds of websites. So even if somebody's listening who's not running e-commerce, it might make still sense to check out the calculator. But we definitely focused on e-commerce because this is where we just have like the most experience and get definitely the best results.
I do know of someone who had to get some reputation help. One of my early partnerships tanked because the guy got taken out by just some keyboard warrior. It was kind of unhinged and unfair. But I saw firsthand how much dropped just getting a negative bit of press that was really unwarranted and unjustified. It's very hard to deal with that unless you have a proactive strategy to get over the top of it or rebrand or something. I think people underestimate it, how important it is to maintain reputation online. It's actually the reason I registered my domain in 2005 was to start getting my name over the top of my IMBD listing at the time, which I was able to do. So I think, this is actually a grassroots story for me. That's 20 years of reputation management in a proactive sense. Owning your own brand is critical, and people probably underestimate it, right? What would you say?
No, absolutely. So first of all, your own brand, you need to own it, but you need to see it's not only your website that needs to rank. It's a lot of different platforms that need to be there. So we kind of check when we check out specifically reputation, which kind of pages on page one do you completely control and where do you have partial control. So partial control could be a Facebook page, for example, Facebook profile. It's not yours, but you can still control what's up there. And then we internally calculate reputation scores and just define a sprint. What does a reputation sprint look like here? It looked like optimizing a series of profiles. It looked like creating new content. It might require the creation of a different micro website or whatever. But we just define what needs to happen here in order to start controlling the assets, because the more people discover you on other platforms, or ChatGPT, for example, it's just what happens these days. The more they're going to go to Google and then say, okay, what else can I find about this page? Or even the AI platforms themselves report based on what they find, because they're also using Google, pretty much all of them at the background. They then summarize what they find. So you're going to, in a situation right now where you're doing reputation management, not for humans, but actually for the bots. So we have a law firm, for example, right now that has a reputational issue, but it comes across in ChatGPT. They're losing sales, and we can almost, it's hard with their volumes still with AI, but you can almost quantify how much they're losing because ChatGPT, based on one page misrepresenting them, actually gives a negative recommendation.
Can people submit to have the records changed, or is it untouchable?
It doesn't work this way. You can only influence the input.
Right. Because I know people have had Google results removed with court cases occasionally.
Right, and Google even has like a submission URL where you can file a claim. So Google has 20 years more experience in this, in this area,
it's
and
a
also
wild
based
west,
on how,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult. So the only thing that GPTs can, and I think they're legally already, they mandatory have to do this, is to essentially put filters on top before something goes out. So the algorithm might still not recommend this brand, but then there is a filter that says legally we are forced to make sure we don't mention this particular website as a resource that mentions that they have a negative issue or connotation or whatever.
Is it still the case that a vast amount of searches are for brands?
A big amount of searches is still for brands. So definitely also brand plus something next to it. So all the SaaS projects, for example, one of the standard strategies for SaaS has always been brand plus other platform whether it integrates. So if you're looking at 10x Pro, you might type in 10x Pro Stripe to see if 10x Pro works with Stripe, for example, right? And these kinds of things. So very often branded search isn't only searching for the brand itself. In your case, we see people search for Schramko email marketing, Schramko AI, Schramko, mentoring, for example. So people just use the brand and want to know what is in relation to this brand, with this brand and the topic actually online, and then consume this content, consume the podcast that you have created about SEO, for example, and things like that.
So this is a very important point around attribution, because I have this conversation a fair bit. It's pretty tricky to discover where people came from or what their flow was, even if they sign up. And even if you talk to them, I could say to you, Gert, how did you first find out about me? But you might not even remember that you did an AI check and then you got on a podcast and then you saw my book on Amazon as a recommended book, and then Google somehow from the browser history figured out you like me, and then you saw an ad, and then you got an email, and then it was like a particular thing or an email, like the very last thing might have been the 2% of the 100% that caused you to decide get on board. Hard for me to extract that, but I like the fact that with your revenue calculator, doesn't even matter if you're helping them across multiple platforms. If you do help them with the core SEO sprint, and that does improve their AI stuff anyway, because there's such a huge overlap, they might look it up on AI, then go to Google to do a little trust check and see that you're ranking and then purchase. Now your revenue is going to lift because of that, right?
Exactly. It's just so important to understand that we have a multi-touch environment. So we need to make sure that we count on an impact on the different platforms, which is why it's so important also with the paid ad strategy to run retargeting ads and those kinds of things, but also be active in the communities where your audience actually hangs out. And it is where really this comes in, where on the one end, you cater to your audience directly where they're interested in. So if this is Instagram and you are on Reels, you're obviously having the direct contact there. But then you might be answering questions on a Reddit thread and just pop up in ChatGPT because you're always connected to this particular topic. It's ultimately, we're playing a join the dots game. It's never been more true than today.
And so have you been running sprints? Are you seeing results come through?
We have definitely a few on the website published as well under the results. We just did like an like an online education system that's driving, I think right now, like $96,000 more per year, just because we discovered like one segment they overlooked and one approach. It was just a food and beverage e-commerce that's now recovering, like I think it was 9,000 per month. Just because we got one of their segments actually up after reorganizing their website. Internal linking is one of the most important ones we discover, where information is just not well connected on websites, and people have no idea until you run the math what the impact is actually.
But how do you pick the leak that you want to fix?
We picked the leak on, I think, in two steps. First of all, we obviously in a quick conversation very quickly get where the client wants to go. And then we check out where they want to go. And based on the revenue leaks that we see that match up, we might then recommend certain leaks. If there's like a huge leak that's completely somewhere else, we might discuss it and say, I know you want to go to A, but there's a very quick revenue recovery on B. Maybe let's do this first, and then it pays for A. But definitely we try to, first of all, obviously list the potential leaks and the revenue that we think can be recovered, but then also factor in what is the plan this brand wants to pursue. and how can we best assist in the individual sprints to get there.
Do you find sometimes like a leak is plugged and then that's it, job done, they move on? Or is there always a leak? Like, is it just a different, is it a recurring relationship instead of a recurring subscription? How does it pan out in reality?
I think my role as a consultant, I always saw it as analyzing a situation, getting the data, fixing it, and then usually stepping back and let this continue. What I have found, and this is how we built our SEOLeverage agency, is that people value an ongoing relationship. So still with the sprints, part of our clients just want an ongoing relationship, and every couple of weeks we send them a quick video with a handful of things they could consider doing. And even there we try to put a revenue number next to it when we can. So they also have an idea that different tasks are not worth the same. But sometimes we just fix something and step out. We just did like an 8-figure e-commerce site. We just fixed a bunch of things, and now they continue to do their own thing. They know their SEO is now better off. The revenue goes up. They recovered more visibility from organic. They start showing up on AI. That's it. They now focus 90% probably on paid ads, but they are fine with a better optimized SEO.
Yeah, I'm thinking to use your fitness metaphor before, I pay my personal trainer for 10 sessions at a time, and then I use them up, and then I redo the sprint. It turns out my body isn't fully sculpted yet and will continue to need strength and condition training. But at least I feel like I have a lot more control over the terms and the timing, and I like that method of billing for that application versus a subscription.
Exactly. Yeah, there's always something you can fix. You obviously need to see, is it worth fixing, or are we talking about $200 per month? And I could actually focus this time on something much more valuable. And I just understand there is a revenue leak, fine, but I'm not going to do anything about it because there's a much bigger payoff somewhere else. And then we obviously also analyze those projects afterwards. So I'm just too curious how projects turn out to just not look at the website and their data anymore afterwards. So I might reach out and say, hey, this is actually, we see this working, or this is another thing. When you have a moment and can focus on SEO for another sprint, this might be interesting to do as well. So there's always something you can fix. The question is it worth it?
Well, you can always do the calculator. Where is that? SEOLeverage.com/calculator.
There you go. Just play with the numbers and look at what this looks like for you.
I like it. The thing I like the most is that you're only focused on the one thing that you, seasoned SEO expert, think will make the biggest difference. And it should prove itself quickly. I mean, if it's a 30-day sprint, then how long does it take to get a tangible result from that?
Sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes it takes 2-3 months. Most things in SEO traditionally take 2 to 3 months. Sometimes it's changing a paragraph on the homepage and next week you're on page 1. It's really hard to predict, but you definitely, because it's so focused, the impact is much faster than doing like a broad SEO strategy where you work on 20 different things on your website. The impact is definitely much, much faster.
I'd say a lot of the market is still in that sort of broad SEO advisory mode. How would you advise a business owner to differentiate between that, the old way, and the new sprint way? What sort of important points would you make with them?
That's a good question. I would probably start by questioning, first of all, do they need SEO? And if they need SEO, at least this is established. Not everybody is going to be able to give you a straight answer. And not every agency is going to say you might not need SEO. Actually, we do.
That is a huge ethical statement right there. I'm the same as you. I'll very quickly let someone know if I don't think I'm the exact right person to help them, because I think client fit and managing expectations is the key to having a happy, enjoyable life.
Exactly. And I'm all about motivation, my team's motivation. And nothing is worse than working with a project where you know they don't care about SEO, they don't see the value, they don't approve content, they don't get back to you at least in a few days. It's extremely frustrating for everybody. So I'd rather have fewer projects, but work on those where SEO definitely makes sense and everybody is on board, than accepting clients in this program or for these sprints where they pretty much ask me to convince them that SEO it makes sense. I'm definitely not doing that.
I know it used to be the case of 10 years ago, but are there still bandits out there making promises and not being able to deliver? Or is it cleaned up a lot through, the storms of SEO changes and stuff? Have most of them sunk now?
I think especially in an environment where, like you say, attribution is difficult, there's always going to be somebody trying to get somebody on a retainer, and ideally maybe 12 months, and deliver results that are never, where we could actually assess on day one, this is never going to have enough impact to make the investment worthwhile. So there's definitely a lot of those. What we are struggling more, I think, in the SEO industry with is people looking for a very, very quick outcome and risking entire businesses. So we are seeing this now with AI where people, I don't know, to give you an example, it seems to be working right now where you just spam the internet, making sure that you're the number one of a best, I don't know what widget, 2025, and you're number one and you publish this all over the place. And right now, AI might give you a benefit, but what's in 3 months when they figured out this is all fake? You need to kind of understand, are you playing the longer game, which has definitely always been our case, and it might take a couple of more months, but I'm going to do this right. I'm going to have those conversations with those people. I'm going to have them try my product, and I'm going to have them decide if they want to include me or not. Or are you looking for a quick output, but at the same time, you might be risking your brand, you might be risking your domain, and your deal with this agency might not even be that good.
So I'm seeing two trends here that are quite interesting. One is there are some graphs circulating at the moment that are saying that we've peaked with social media, that we've gone to the top and now we're coming back off. People are fed up with posting all their holiday pictures on Instagram, and there seems to be, certainly in my catchment, and I know I get a very personalized view of social media as everyone else does, seems to be a lot of AI content created that's turning into a noisy place. So like it's quite obviously less human, and that will be a disincentive. So I don't know if you'll give me that confirmation or argue with it that social media is getting maxed out a little bit. There's also, I've seen a trend of people leaning on AI, progressive SEO type campaigns where there are actually quite big brands doing some seriously expensive automation creation to volumize sites and to get big wins. Is that like the cloaking tools of 2004, or are we in in the traffic equalizer era, or is it a legit thing that can be done well with a low amount of risk? Is it something that people should be considering if they get offered that? Is it something you do?
We now get the websites that tanked because the owner thought they could scale content like crazy when ChatGPT came out.
Right.
And it actually worked for a while. And this is the shame sometimes with SEO. You might be doing something, you get the return, you get the value, you make more money, you get more visitors. And then a core update comes out and Google just says, yeah, this doesn't work any longer. So the last 50,000 articles you created for all kinds of variations of this particular keyword, just delete them because I'm not going to send any traffic to them. And then you have a bunch of content that's hardly relevant for your buyers. And this is where the content audit and the pruning comes from that we always do. We say, let's really focus on what actually drives the right person in, because you can have all the traffic you want if this doesn't move forward, and then do the cleanup. So there's always going to be somebody showing you a hockey stick graphic of something that just has worked right now. But then they are not going to be there 3 months later showing you how this hockey stick evolved. I've never seen that. But what you do see is analysis of sites that seem to have worked really well, and then they tanked after a core update. And then there's the core update analysis that says, I don't know how many affiliate sites now tanked, and Google is after the affiliates. It's not after the affiliates. They just leveraged a loophole for a while when it was working well, and then it stopped.
I feel like SEO is such a great metaphor for where you could have a false illusion of something working and then it gets completely derailed. I used to think of SEO as being like Google used to be like a praise machine. If you did a good job, it would praise you with a top ranking. But then if you cheat, I guess, or take shortcuts, it will give you the praise, but then it discovers that you didn't earn it, and then it smashes you. It says, hang on a minute, we're going to take that praise back, and we're also going to ban you. We're going to really relegate your site to really not that interested. And some of the evidence that I've had where we're doing good quality SEO pays would be my surf website, because I go down to my garage, I film original content, it gets transcribed, and then we put original images with original words on the website, and it ranks like crazy forever. It's like just lock, stock, and two smoking barrels. Like, it's unstoppable because this content has never appeared on the internet before and it was not machine generated. So why wouldn't it rank well?
One of the best things you can do as an e-commerce site these days is create custom photography for your product. Just hardly anybody does.
Not Nano Banana.
Not Nano Banana. We'll see how Google reacts to that, right? But not even AI created is definitely going to be better than manufacturer imagery.
Yeah, like that. Isn't that the e-commerce thing? You just get some RSS feed from somewhere of all your items, and it just auto-populates, and you've basically got one of the 3,800 other sites selling the exact same model of that product, and maybe you name it differently if you're getting artsy.
It definitely was. I remember a lot of conversations I had with like people who just spent like $1,500 on a dropshipping program, built their site and imported their 5,000 product catalog, and then they were asking me why they didn't rank. And then I typed in like part of the text into Google, and I found 550 other pages doing the exactly same thing. I always say, how should Google know? This is literally what I tell my clients. How should Google know that you deserve to rank up there and the other ones don't? Because if you are up there, somebody's down. So Google needs to make a call. And there are obviously things you can do in order to put the odds in your favor, but you still need to deserve this and defend it as well.
It's kind of like it's a value mechanism, isn't it? How valuable is this? And if you think fundamentally, Google gets paid a lot by advertisers. That's their source of income, right? One of their main sources of income is AdWords, or whatever they call it now.
Ads.
Yeah, and to do that, they have to have people using Google, and to do that, they have to present really good outcomes for people searching, and to do that, they've got to trust the content, and to do that, they're going to run all their filters and checks, which they don't publish. So if you're trying to scam it with rubbish volume automation and they find out, then they're not going to be excited about it. I think like that all makes sense to me. That's quite logical.
I think it's just this, the value is not there. And this is what brings me back to the revenue leaks, right? So you might be finding a way or a tool or a methodology or a prompt that helps you shoot out, I don't know how much content for your blog, and you're happy because you can let go of your writer and you just need a VA copying and pasting and formatting. But at the same time, you're producing content that's just not optimized for your audience. It's content that's everywhere else on the web as well. It has nothing original, even though you might get traffic for a short period of time. If you have no additional input and just that, it's not going to do well, and it's definitely not going to drive revenue. And this is where I think in such a noisy environment where you can do so many things, and every day I get emails every single day of new tools I should try with my agency, because everybody's looking for agency partners and try this and try that. Literally yesterday I got 2, I think, for new things I could be doing. In such an environment, it's so important to like focus and say, okay, what is my goal? My goal is to drive my revenue up. So how can I really realistically, at least on paper or in the calculator, see that this action is actually going to be tied to revenue? And then the focus is much easier, because now you're choosing between 5 and not 500 different things. And you also even know on paper what the output can be.
It's been the greatest lesson for me in the last just 2 months. I developed my Bullseye content system. I deployed it in combination with my octopus method. I created playbooks for my mentor members for this. It's the most effective iteration of content marketing that I've ever done, where it's totally not about volume. It's nothing to do with noise. It is pure signal. Like the vast majority of my podcasts now or shows are solo episodes designed to do one thing, and that is to help my perfect prospect to show them value and to make it clear that I solve the exact same problems they're experiencing. So when you dial it into the crosshairs, it makes sense. It all makes sense. Everything you're saying. You've changed the model from we'll look at everything and we'll stick you on an endless retainer to we will calculate exactly how much revenue you're missing. We'll show you the one or two things that you really should focus on and discard everything else for now. For this sprint, you'll pay a fixed amount for this time. You'll have minimal outputs. We will align our team around it and get you an outcome. I like you're tipping the industry. You've put them on notice, Gert. You're the white hat. And I love what you're doing there, and I just love that you're getting results. But also, I see it firsthand because you still send me the thing we need to do, and we do it, and we get the result too. So I'm always grateful for that. Our side is still ticking along beautifully, and you've been a stakeholder in that. So thank you. I'm going to mention where that calculator is: SEOLeverage.com/calculator.
There you go. Thank you so much, team. Definitely appreciate the work your team is doing and having an open ear and readiness to work on our stuff. And then I think ultimately it's just a matter of how you want to operate. Do you want to do like laser focused sprints or projects and make sure that you take your business up one level? Do you want to work a little bit on everything and just make sure that you have a broad strategy? There's probably a reason for both. But we definitely think like the focused action is more tied to the ultimate revenue recovery.
Well, it's certainly a good trust builder and a starting point because you'll know in a very short time how effective that is, and to see if all that back testing and all the data and all the decades of experience is worth something.
Exactly.
Thanks, mate. It's great to have you on. And if you've got a question for Gert, just get in touch with him. He's on the socials. You can forward it to me or suggest something that you'd like me to bring him back and talk about in a future episode. I'm going to continue these interactions because it is a dynamic marketplace once again. Good on you, mate. I love what you're doing.
Thank you, James.
This is James Schramko.